Now, all public sector agencies will be required to decide within 72 hours whether or not to notify affected people about a data breach. This is one of the new rules to be set in place next year to plug gaps in data security in Singapore. The public sector's internal data protection rules, known as Instruction Manual 8 or IM8, will be updated next year to make data protection measures clearer and plug gaps, said Government Data Office Director Kwek Soo Lin. This is the first major revision to data rules addressing long-standing criticisms that private companies are subject to stricter measures compared to those in the public sector. The gap in data protection measures came under the spotlight after a series of public sector breaches which involved the sensitive data of patients and students. With us in the studio to tell us more is journalist Hariz Baharudin. Hey Hariz.
Hi.
Now welcome to the show. Now Hariz, how significant is this new move? How will this affect Singaporeans?
I think it's especially significant because it puts into writing standard practices for how data breaches should be handled in the public sector. So, no one is saying that the government has handled data security very poorly or has been wrong, but I think there's been some inconsistency amongst the 94 agencies in the government. So some agencies, like maybe those in the financial sector, maybe have more robust practices. So I think this is an exercise of trying to apply the best practices to the whole of government across the board. So no matter if you're a ministry, a stat board, an agency, it means that data is important and everyone in the public sector needs to get on board and really rethink or reorientate themselves about how they see data and prioritize its protection.
Right, yeah, it's a good way to standardize across everything. Now, the proposals were made, of course, by the Public Sector Data Security Review Committee, which was convened by Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong after a series of breaches. Now, can you give us a quick recap of those data breaches as well as their impact?
Okay, so this year there's been quite a few. I think especially in the earlier part of the year, there was the issue of the confidential details of 14,000 HIV patients that were leaked online in January. So this included their HIV status, their IC number and contact details. And then just about 2 months after, it was reported that the Health Sciences Authority, or HSA, one of their vendors had improperly stored the data of more than 800,000 blood donors on an unsecure server over 2 months in the system. So this included details like not just their names and RIC number, but also their history of blood donations, and when and how many they've actually gone through. And then less than a week later, ST reported that email login credentials of employees in several government agencies had been put up online for sale by hackers. And this, of course, is in the shadow of what was Singapore's worst cyber attack, the SingHealth data breach, where hackers got away with 1.5 million data of 1.5 billion SingHealth patients and the outpatient prescription details of 160,000 people, including our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong.
Right. Now, Hariz, just on a final note, what are some of the biggest or most important changes in the updated data rules?
I think it's better to think of them less as changes and maybe more of sharpening certain practices that some parts of the government have already been doing, and also introducing some new steps that seek to sort of fortify data security. So I think perhaps one of the biggest things that will be included in this update of the IM8 is the requirement that all public sector agencies will have to decide within 72 hours whether to notify the affected parties about a breach or not, like you mentioned earlier. So if they're unsure of if people should know about this breach, like in the case of maybe it's got national security concerns, they can approach the Government Data Office, who will then decide how to manage the incident. So, and I think another example is the sharpening of how data should be protected when the agencies have it. So, according to the updates that will be in the IM8, public agencies have to do things like watermark files downloaded to aid investigations in the case of data incidents, and they have to add random strings of data to modify that stored password so that even if hackers get a hold of it, they can't read it and they can't make use of it. So these are some of the steps that will be included in the IM8 that I think are quite good that they're including it, and it's quite important.
Right. Well, thank you, Hariz, for coming on the show and for sharing more about this, about the new rules regarding data breaches with us. Now, there you have it, the top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com. And once again, I'm Dylan. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.